So today I wanted to talk about survivorship bias. If you don't know what survivorship bias is, it's the logical error of concentrating on the people or things that made it past the selection process and overlooking the rest that didn't make that selection process, probably because of lack of visibility. That sounded very confusing, so let me give you an example. Let's say you're trying to start a business, right? Whether it's a landscaping company or an advertising agency or whatever the business is, you're gonna go on Google and you're gonna look up how to start a business. You're gonna see Shopify articles that show you how to do it in 12 steps. You're gonna see tons of ads for website companies that want you to build your website with them or through them, and you're gonna feel a bit overwhelmed. You're gonna feel overwhelmed until you go on Instagram or Facebook and you come across people like Gary Vee or someone else that preaches hard work will get you anywhere and you just have to put in the hours and you'll be successful. But I have one problem with that. The problem is that you're watching videos from people that have already made it. They've already grown and been a part of huge companies, so of course they're going to tell you that you just have to put in the hours and it'll pay off because it paid off for them. All we see are the hyper successful people. We see people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and other people like that. We don't see the people that never made it. We don't see the company that was rivaling Apple in the 80s but never made it off the ground. We never saw the company that rivaled Tesla back in 2007 and 2008 when Tesla was on the brink of becoming bankrupt because that company was probably already bankrupt. We never hear from the people that started their business and either it didn't take off or they didn't get it to where they wanted it to be, or maybe just life happened for that person. So unfortunately, they had to shut it down. It doesn't matter what the excuse is, you just never hear from those people. It's the same thing with grief. I remember when my mom's mom passed away, it seemed like my mom shook it off and, she was back to normal the next day. To be fair, I was like 11 or 12, so I wasn't necessarily paying attention to my mom's emotions. I was probably too occupied with Spider-Man 2 when playing that, and maybe she was just being strong for me, but I never asked, so I'll never know the answer. Anyway, I wasn't nearly as strong as her when it came to my time to deal with her passing, and I remember it was just devastating to me. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life, and it'll probably be the same for you, as bad as that is to say. Anyway, I don't remember when I started to feel normal, because after something like that happens, there is no feeling normal. You just learn to live with the circumstances. But let's call it a year, right? For example, to go back to normal. Let me preface this part of the video by saying that I'm no expert when it comes to grief. If you truly need help, I suggest getting professional help because I can just give my side of the story when it came to dealing with grief. Luckily, like I said, I had my girl to lean on in that situation, but if you are going through something and want to talk about it, my DMs are always open. Anyway, I can sit here all day and tell you that it took me a year and you shouldn't worry because the feelings will pass and stuff like that, because I can only speak for me. I can't speak for being in other people's shoes. I can't speak for the people that probably caused themselves harm because of their parent passing away, because I've never heard of such story. I'm sure it's happened, don't get it twisted, but I can't speak for those people because I never did that. Obviously, I've made it clear in videos that I questioned existence and I felt like there was no need to keep on living, but that was as far as it got for me. I can tell you that the feelings will eventually pass and you'll have this totally different outlook on life and you'll appreciate it way more and you might become a minimalist and you'll find your passion within a few years and then life will be all sunshine and rainbows, but that's simply not the case. Some people have very deep and dark feelings of depression even 2 or 3 or 5 years or even for the rest of their life after the passing of a parent because everybody deals with it differently. There's no one way to deal with grief. There is no formula for it. You know how when you're sick, they tell you to take vitamin C because it'll help you with your cold or whatever you have? There is no vitamin C for grief. It just happens at different stages for different people, and the intensity is different for different people. My dad hasn't been in my life since I was 4. And yes, this sounds bad, but if I got the call tomorrow that something happened to my dad, I'm not saying I wouldn't be sad, but I wouldn't be nearly as sad as when my mom passed away, because I never had that relationship with my dad. So because I never had that relationship with him, I can turn on the camera right here and say, oh yeah, when something happens to him, it's not a big deal. But for somebody that's lived with their dad for their whole life, it could and probably will be devastating for them. And it'll only be worse if they only lived with their dad. A big thing nowadays is skipping college. Again, we see people that drop out of college like Mark Zuckerberg, and we say, oh, look, he didn't go to college and he's worth like $100 billion. But on the other side of the coin, if you look at the earnings of people that went to college, you'll see that people with a degree earned approximately $45,000 a year, according to talent.com in Canada, and high school graduates earned approximately $29,000 a year. So just because you see that one outlier situation doesn't make it 100% factual. I would argue that if you're basing your expectations on looking at outlier situations like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're only looking at one side of the coin in that situation. You're not looking at the thousands or millions of people that tried the same thing as Mark Zuckerberg and they didn't get anywhere. Now they're working a $15 an hour job or $20 an hour job, and they're wondering where they went wrong. You see what I mean? And let me make it clear, working a $15 an hour job and $20 an hour job, I'm not, slandering that in any way. Like, I make $16 an hour. So, this goes back to my last video, but the only way to avoid situations like this is to form your own opinion and do your own research. Anyone like Gary Vee will tell you that school is a waste of time and this and that, but look at the times when Gary Vee was coming up in the game of business. There was way less competition. He started an advertising agency back when advertising was still there, but it wasn't nearly as prevalent as today. It's like Microsoft and Apple. They were some of the first, if not the first companies in their niche, so they just took over the market. Nowadays, if you want to overtake Apple, all I'm going to say is good luck to you. There's nothing else I can say. At the end of the day, all I can do is try and show you the reality of most of these situations. I'm not saying that Gary Vee and all these guys are lying to you. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think their message is coming from a good place in their heart. They want you to do more and be more, and they're telling you that you should go and try those endeavors that you want to try. But I think we also have to look at the statistics of the situation. According to fundsquire.ca, 20% of businesses fail within the first year, and 60% of them fail in the first 3 years. And let me be clear, this isn't meant to discourage you from starting your business and doing your thing, but let's just be a touch realistic. Just sprinkle in a little realism, The moral of the story, I guess, is, just like I said in my last video, you always have to form your own opinion and just be a touch realistic when it comes to things that are gonna take up a lot of time in your life. Again, I'm not trying to say Gary Vee is lying to you, and I'm not trying to discourage you. I truly think that if you do put in the work, you can build something great. But at the end of the day, it all depends on one thing, and that's if you're willing to put in the work. Building a business isn't a 40-hour per week job. It's 60 and 70 and 80 hours a week. So that's just something that you have to be prepared for. And as always, thanks for watching.